Welcome to the Council meeting for Tuesday the 28th of June. And I'd like to open by acknowledging this land that we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people, and we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. I read you the Council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Please be seated. That's the 1.3 on the agenda. Does anybody wish to declare a conflict of interest?
Someone's going to sit in that chair. A lady.
Excellent. On leave we have nil, and apologies we have nil. No? Excellent. Does someone confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council for Tuesday the 24th of May? Councillor Lee, you wish to speak to it? Councillor Stanton, you wish to speak to it? Thank you. Okay, any other debate? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. And I'd like to commence this meeting by announcing very proudly that Director for All Good Things has let us know that our public engagement and community planning process for the Memorial Gardens Master Plan, with the kids involved in giving feedback about the playground additions, has won a national commendation for planning excellence. So please congratulate the team. Great job. You ran that really well. Thank you, Nathan. If you could pass on our congratulations to us. There you go. We hit the big stage, and I think it was not only great that we've received that commendation, but that thank you. So that it wasn't something that we had to reinvent a wheel or get an expensive consultant in to do. It was our team thought of those ideas and delivered it on the ground in a very grassroots style. And I think that was fantastic. And obviously commended by the Planning Institute of Australia. On to my Mayor's update and Mayoral report on page 1 and 2 of the agenda. A couple of slight changes. You'll notice in there sorry, just get the actual words on it. Handy. The last bullet point, the panel member on the Property Council of Australia, Urban Development Institute of Australia, inaugurated a session on planning culture. That session's been deferred. So noting the report's written before the event happened, I have to take that one off. So I asked them to move it as amended. And while that note's coming up. And I've also been asked to include the names of we'll call them developers. I'm not sure they actually are the developers, but they're certainly part of the team involved in the Thorngate proposal, and they are listed there. Robert Warren, Chris Papagiannis, who he was taking minutes, Dr. Carlo D'Ortenzio, who is at number 1 Fitzroy Terrace, and Ellie Kakar, who is part of Michael Chris Real Estate, and he is acting on their behalf. So they will be listed in the report. So one other item before I ask someone to move it. I understand, I know that the Deputy Mayor led our presentation to the Wei Feng delegation who came out from China to see us and others, and I understand it's a very successful delegation. So perhaps just a quick report from the Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a really almost go as far as saying, well, I would go as far as saying it's my privilege on Tuesday to meet with the delegation from Wei Feng. There were 5 delegates who came along, and really, to put on the public record, really well supported by staff, in particular Chris, Newby, Nathan, and translator extraordinaire Ginny, who did just an amazing job, and to see her in action was fantastic. We met with them here. We talked about what Prospect can offer them and what we can offer that relationship. They talked to us about their district in China, in Wei Feng, and we then went on a bus tour of Prospect and showed them some of the really important parts of Prospect. We went on millions, we showed them some of the development sites. And a really good opportunity for us to talk to them about all the things that Prospect is doing. One of the really good things is we also had some local businesses here. So Liam from my local butcher came and his lamb supply from Cluster actually talked about lamb production and also beef. And so these are things that they're very interested in, and they're really keen to talk to us a bit more about. And we finished off with and I guess an opportunity to talk to them in more detail later in the evening. One of the things they did is they gave us this lovely gift, which I want to show you, and this has a lot of really significant cultural relevance. And I'm going to do it on these. I'll need assistance. Thank you, Councillor Lee. This is actually a replica of a scroll that was found in Waifang, and Ginny will correct me if I get any of these details incorrect. It effectively shows an academic record of achievement from somebody in Waifang, and it's harks back to the Ming Dynasty, if I can get those words out correctly, and they gave that to us, and this is a really important part of the relationship with us. They want to give this to us, and so I'm sure we can find somewhere appropriate to hang it, that we can demonstrate that good relationship with the delegation from Waifang. They're really keen to keep talking to us, which I think is a really, really good outcome. They were amazed how beautiful our city was, how clean it was. They talked about the housing they saw, about the new development they saw. They were very excited about it. And so I know it's something that the mayors will continue to chase up with them as well. They certainly invited us all back over to China, so I'm sure at some point we will have opportunities to talk to them a bit more. So just want to report that back. It was really good. And again, I just want to acknowledge the staff who did a fantastic job in supporting them.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Really appreciative that you were able to stand in and do that, and for the staff, of course the CEO and myself, and the National General Assembly of Local Government in Canberra, and couldn't attend. We had set up 3 previous dates that the delegation was unable to meet, and we were able to meet all the previous 3 dates, but not that one. The great thing is we now have more people in our overall team capable of delivering a presentation and hosting a delegation of any type, so I'm really excited about that capability that we've developed. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Could I have someone move that the Mayor's report be accepted?
So moved.
Councillor Harris, and seconded by Councillor Lee. Do either of you wish to speak to it?
Thank you.
Any further debate? All those in favour? Against it is carried. Thank you. Next item is item 6, verbal reports from council representatives on local government or community organisations. The first one that I have listed here is for our CEO, Kate Atkinson, to report on that National General Assembly. So, CEO.
Thank you very much, Mayor. On your tables you would have seen some notes that I made earlier. I don't intend to walk you through those notes, but they represent a general overview of many of the presentations, not all the presentations, but many of the presentations that were undertaken through the National General Assembly. I would have to say it was one of the better assemblies I have attended over many years, and certainly found some of the presentations extremely interesting. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things for you, because I think throughout the Congress the Mayor and I identified a number of elements that we could actually bring back into Prospect, and I'm sure our community will benefit. But just some interesting facts. George Megalogenis, who's a media commentator, gave a fantastic presentation about city development and what it currently means to be within cities, what politics is all about, and just a couple of facts from a planning perspective was around what is the best size for a city and what is happening in Australia at the moment and potentially in the future. And his view of the world was a city of about 4 million is about maximum to have livability. So if you still want to be a livable city and be recognised within the top 100 cities, once you get over 4 million residents, you're going to lose that aspect of it. But in actual fact, Australia in the future is going to need 3 more cities to actually accommodate our population demands. So where are they going to be and how are they actually going to be developed, bearing in mind that Canberra was the last purpose-built city in Australia. And we certainly, from a national perspective, need to consider how that's going to happen. We've got record low interest rates, and how are we, from a Commonwealth perspective, going to deal with that. The presentation from Nicole Burbis from Telstra was really interesting from my perspective in terms of how organisations operate effectively from a staffing perspective. And they've gone about revisioning Telstra, repositioning themselves as leaders in their sector, and they have actually reduced the need for physical infrastructure for their staff because they want their staff to be mobile. And in actual fact, we want our staff to be mobile as well. So how do we get our staff out in the field working properly? Do we need a huge amount of office space? How do we actually ensure that the needs of our community are being met by our staff? And some of the facts in relation to that I found quite interesting was that they've certainly moved away from dedicated desk space. There's a whole lot of capital tied up in dedicated desk space and floor space ownership, and they've moved away from that completely and have certainly introduced a cafe culture into their organisation where people sit around collectively dealing with issues and working together, not in one team but in many teams. And people come together and move apart again and move out into the community and back again. And that was also reflected in the work that the City of Boston has undertaken. And Microsoft brought over 3 representatives of the City of Boston in terms of how they've re-imaged themselves. They're very similar to Australia. Many of the elements in the City of Boston are reflected in many of our cities, and they have certainly gone about building a culture of excellence and innovation within their organisation, and that's where we actually want to be recognised. And many of the ways in which they deal with things is immediate. If it succeeds, let's replicate it. If it fails, let's recognise that and move on. And they have a relatively high culture of risk-taking, and they are not averse to trying things and seeing if they can actually implement them, and if they can't, they'll move on. And nobody is there saying that was the wrong thing to do, that was the right thing to do, let's actually be brave in terms of what we're doing. And they've got a direct relationship with their citizens in relation to responding to complaints and keeping in touch with people. Overall, I thought it was really good, and I think there are some real learnings out of Boston in terms of community leadership. So I was really thrilled to be there, and certainly thank the Council for the opportunity to represent you at that Congress.
Okay, thank you, CEO. And we don't have opportunity for questions per se in this session, so if you have ask them informally afterwards or in general business if it's a matter you think needs a further report. But we also had Councillor Larwood travel to Ohio on behalf of the City of Prospect and join the board of the ICF. So, Councillor Larwood, just give us an insight into how that trip went. We're intrigued.
I'll keep my presentation brief because I've got a slot line up in a workshop in a few weeks' time where I'll spend a fair bit more time downloading and debriefing everybody on what I achieved. But first of all, I would like to thank the City of Prospect for the opportunity to represent the City at the Intelligent Communities Forum Foundation, one of only 2 Australian councils who were there, us and the City of Ipswich were there, and there was people from pretty much every continent, a lot of people from North America, a lot of people from Asia, people from Europe, and the Intelligent Communities Forum really is about helping smart cities become intelligent communities. And so smart cities are cities who are putting in place infrastructure around technology. The intelligent part comes when the city leverages that infrastructure for community and economic benefit. So they have a top 7 who were nominated as the finalists, and they ranged in size from Montreal in Canada, where there's 3 or 4 million people there, and it's pretty much a large city, all the way through to Wanganui in New Zealand, where there's 40,000 ratepayers sort of out in the country. So they were the 2 ends of the spectrum with regards to the finalists. Montreal ended up winning, gave a fantastic presentation, and it wasn't down to one thing, it was down to a myriad of things which they have done consistently over a number of years, and it's also about the planning for what they intend to do in the future. The core themes were that everything needs to go digital in the future, and that ties in with what you guys saw in Canberra, and cooperation, and that's not only from a local government perspective, but local government and state government. They talked a lot about, hopefully the picture's still there, it's gone, okay. So they talked about the ideal collaboration between education, private sector and public sector being what's needed in order to achieve goals in the future. So takeaways for the City of Prospect were many, and now the job is to sit down and really start to bundle together the information to reach out to the connections that I made when I was over there. There's the opportunity to create an Intelligent Communities country framework. So Canada has one, I think some of the European countries have them, but there's not one in Australia yet. So I discussed that with the Mayor of Ipswich, and he was keen to be part of that. And I think Prospect should lead that as an opportunity for us to help drive what we're doing forward by reaching out to our neighbours and making sure that we're taking on board the best of what's happening around the world, bring it back, apply it to Prospect where it's relevant, and then continue to strive for greater benefits in the future. So once again, thanks for the opportunity, and I look forward to presenting in more detail in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you, and thank you for taking time out of your working life to get over there and represent us, and really excited to hear what's coming up in the workshop. So, getting the money's worth, I'm sure, from Bear and from you. We'll see in that workshop. And see how the schedule in the next 2 or 3, is it, or?
Middle of July.
Middle of July, great, fantastic. Okay. Are there any other verbal reports from council representatives on local government or community organisations? No, to be the case. We'll move on to petitions. We have nil. Deputations, we have one regarding Audley House. So if I can now call forward Ms. Audrey Vaughan of 14 Carter Street. If you're able to come forward, just want to see your chair here. Terrific. And if you could please stand in the council. Yes, our rules require it, I'm afraid, but please feel very welcome even though you're standing, and your voice will project much better as well. And for the purpose of the minutes, could you please state your name and address?
My name is Audrey Vaughan, and I live at 14 Carter Street, Prospect.
Okay, thank you. You have up to 5 minutes to address.
Yes, yes. So thank you very much for allowing me to talk about Audley House, because I have lived in Prospect for over 30 years, and I love Prospect dearly. And this house has always held a really passion in my heart, and I just feel that it is such a beautiful, graceful heritage home, and it would be such an asset for Prospect to own such a lovely building, not just for a library, but for the whole community. And if it isn't suitable for a library, we could have it for a beautiful art centre and for the community, if that was the case. It has beautiful green space in the front, which is one of the criteria for a library and community centre. And I could envisage beautiful garden parties and things for the kids to do, like Willy Wonka's garden parties and weddings, and it's just musical evenings. When I was in Canada recently, I went to a little local library because my friend wanted to use the facility for Wi-Fi, etc. And they had beautiful musical evening, afternoon, on a Sunday afternoon, a grand piano in there, and the local residents used to bring their violins, and it was just wonderful. And I thought that would be so lovely for us to have too. So that's also, that part of Prospect Road needs revitalising. There are a few businesses out there that are struggling. They're always changing hands, and I just thought, with the new cinema here, you need something at that end so that the whole of Prospect Road would be involved. And it would bring people from the cinema to the library, and people from the library to the cinema. Also, it's on a bus route, and a lot of people don't drive, me including. I've never driven. And so I use the buses, and I walk all the time. So, we need passing trade, and we need people to come this side of the city too. So that's my really main thing. And I have got a lot of signatures already, and everybody I speak to would just love us to have that building as part of Prospect. So I don't know what you think about that, but I know that you say it doesn't meet a lot of the criteria, but actually it does. There are schools around there. We're on a main route. At the back of the property there's a swimming pool, and I have walked around there, and Alderley Avenue, you could use that swimming pool for car parking because there would be an exit, an entrance and an exit coming into Alderley Road. And a lot of people that go to the library, they don't stay there more than, say, an hour or so. So really the traffic is in and out. It doesn't, you know, when I go every week to our library, and I belong to the Hub, and I'm in a knitting group, and I help people to knit, and the people there are just so friendly. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And so that's my main point.
Thank you very much. Please don't go away, because there may be some questions from the elected members. Are there any questions about Deputy today? No, that being the case, thank you very much for your presentation tonight. Please resume your seat in the gallery. Thank you. And if I could have your indulgence, elected members, we bring forward item 15.2, so I seek leave of the meeting to pull that item forward, 15.2. All those in favour? Against is carried. Thank you. So we'll turn our attention to item 15.2. Our recommendation is on page 9, the Library Plus Locational Site Analysis. We have a recommendation there, parts 1 and part 2. Do I have a mover? Councillor Evans, do you wish to speak to this?
Well, just briefly, other than to say what we, or the process that we went through at the workshop last week, I thought was very comprehensive. And I guess just to commend both, I think Andrew, who's with us this evening, and the staff who put that together. It was quite a detailed and I think difficult process to envisage and to overcome. And we've done that, and we're at a point now where we do need to start making decisions. It's not an easy journey, I don't think. We are talking about a decision that's going to be with us for a very long time. What our library looks like is still, I think, the subject of much discussion to be had. What's housed there, the format in which it works, the accessibility, the amenity. These are all issues that we need to work through over the course of the coming weeks and months. But in terms of the direction, we did set out with 4 sites. We've narrowed it down to 2 sites that Council owns, which gives us tremendous flexibility to make sure that this facility that we build is affordable as well and sustainable, and that's a big thing that I look at. So having been part of the process, having been part of the group that selected the 4 sites, looking at the analysis that we performed, I'm confident that these 2 sites reflect the better options for us, and look forward to the next stages of what no doubt is still a very complex and difficult project to achieve over the coming months. So on that basis, I urge you to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. So the seconder, Councillor Harris, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I'll just add a couple of other things, particularly because we had a previous speaker talk about one of the places we looked at. We had a set criteria that we went through after we'd done all the things you talked about, Councillor, but when we came to the end result of the 4, then it made 5 places. In fact, actually, originally I think we had about half a dozen, because we did actually look at some other places as well. But when it came down, and the 2 areas we're looking at now is, one is the depot area, the tram barn, that sort of area in there, and the other one was the civic centre here. I might say personally I support the tram barn area, and I think I did from the word go. Audrey House, why it didn't make it into this category, I'd love to see us have a couple of $1 million and use it as part of something else in the street, so it was still part of ours, but it doesn't fit in here. That's that couple of $1 million that we would save that we could put into this project. So my main concern of supporting the project is that we really use our heads as far as the outside workers, the depot and the area that's already there, that we still make good use of those, because there's some very important employees of our council that work there, so that fits in elsewhere around the place and that sort of stuff. So I support it, and let's see what the next stage is the costing of the 2 different places. But personally, I support the tram barn one, but I second the 2 paragraphs.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Black.
Yeah, I just, after Talis detailing about the very, very detailed and comprehensive analysis, I think it was a little bit rushed in a way. We were presented with information at the workshop at the meeting that could have been provided prior to, so to digest the information. The objectives, the wording had changed from when we originally discussed them, and certainly I fought hard to get outdoor space on there. We did have 2 council elected members absent on that workshop, but obviously we can discuss it here tonight. But I think, after hearing the deputation as well, what people do value is a place with soul, and sometimes having a green space, not necessarily a paved space, but certainly there was a lot of admiration for Stirling Library. So I think with that sentiment, I would hate to rule out anything. Something else did come along, because I did notice that the recommendation that was exclusively in shortlisting the 2 sites, council acknowledged that no further assessments is to occur in any other sites. Now, I'd be of the persuasion if a site came up that had, for example, Peppermint Grove next to it, one of our parks, that we could look at that. So I don't really want to exclude anything, and I would, consider keeping that open.
Thank you. Any further debates?
Thank you. Well, I'm sitting here tonight, I think, both nervous and excited. This is probably one of the biggest decisions we've made for a long time in this chamber, and probably one of the most expensive decisions we're going to make for a long time as well. I think, really appreciate some of what the Deputy had to say tonight, and I think Councillor Harris summed it up there. There's lots of good reason why the sort of space that Audley House provides us is something that would really benefit the City of Prospect. Whether it's the library or whether it's something else is probably the debate, and I would agree with the assessment done by us the other week that I think we've narrowed it down to 2. I'm nervous because we're running out of time, and we really are starting to run out of time. We're now, we're June 2016. We have about 2 years to get this built, completed, moved in, fitted out, and agreed to around the table about what it is we want. So I do think we need to kind of push forward with it. Councillor Bowman, I think, raises a good point about the second recommendation around what happens if you do go down the path of looking at some plan preparation, some market testing, some risk analysis. What do we do? And I think it's not an unreasonable point. I'm convinced, though, that we do go ahead, and if we do have to tackle that issue, then we tackle it, and it would require a rescission motion for council. And if it requires that, then so be it. It would be a fairly big decision for us to move backwards from what we're agreeing, or what we're potentially going to do. So look, I support the motion, I support both recommendations. I think it is really exciting, but I think we've got to get on with it. And one of the things I'd be really keen to see through the Mayor to the CEO is some project plan timelines now or soon about how this is going to, how we work back from October 2018, 19. So 3 and a bit years. So we really need that project plan timeline so we know we're going to be on track. That's going to be a really critical issue for us. Anyway, I support the motion, and I'm more excited than I am nervous. I think that's a good reason to vote for it.
Further debate? Councillor Bowman.
Yes, I think it's been pointed out, we're now really at the pointy end of this in terms of project management. 2 years will just go so quickly. And also, I think some of the cost benefits from having these on 2 of council already owns the sites. There are certain cost benefits there. I think, in our heart of hearts, yes, we'd love to have Audley House, and I had visions of. I was too late to say St Helens Townhouse, so part of me, is also there. But I think realistically. Us trying to raise what's about 1.3 million or whatever more, or 4 million upwards. Who knows what happens at auctions? Keeping that in mind, certainly I would be one of the first out there. If there was any hint of Audley House or the likes thereof, undergoing the demolition, and lay my rather ample body now, and then it was in 1976 for the St Helens Townhouse. in front of the bulldozers, etc. And I think I'd have a few other supporters there as well. But at any rate, I think now I'm also of the view with Councillor Bowman, keep bringing up about let's not forget, about what green spaces do, and we've got so little, greenery that surely we've got an opportunity here. But as has been pointed out at our last workshop, there's been a fine line between some of these sorts of items, and that they're actually going to be, yet again, we have another go with the design of the building. All right, so that will be where a lot of these other points will come up to us for decision making. So I support the both recommendations.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Sanders.
Like Councillor Groot, I'm also very excited. It marks a point in time, a fixed point in time, when we make a decision about these, where this library is going to end up, and I think it's going to be very exciting when we finally come down to the last site. I'm with Councillor Harrison as much as I'm very much on the Trambarn team. My thoughts are that it's a very flexible space, but it also is central to the larger community of Prospect, and I keep reminding myself that the people of the east side of Prospect don't necessarily, they haven't voted to close the current library. They had no say, and that decision's been taken away from us. So we need to, as much as possible, be very sympathetic to their needs, and if they have to move further, then that's something that we need to minimise as much as possible. And I think just the idea of keeping the site as close as possible to the central part of Prospect as the city, and to where it is, to minimise the interruption and the disruption to people's lives who currently go to that library. It's a shame that we couldn't have it in the east part of the city, but there's no site available. So I think very much it's from my point of view, it's very obvious that the Trambarn should be the primary site. But that's something that we'll be discussing later on. I'm happy that we've got a fixed point in time now where we can move on and start to have that discussion. And I look forward to the design process. I think that's going to be the really exciting bit. I think that's going to be the bit where we all get to have some blue sky thinking. But I wholly support this motion, and let's get on it. Let's move forward. Let's get going.
Further debate. Just briefly from the chair, this is an incredibly important decision. We need to get our skates on. We've had a very considered pathway to get to this point in order to ascertain whether the two best sites to put what we believe will be the largest investment in the city's recent history. By recent I mean at least 100 years. This will be the largest investment that the city's made in that period of time. So we need to get it right, or as right as we possibly can. We are mere mortals. We're working really hard at that. We've travelled interstate and across the Adelaide metropolitan area to see the very best, and perhaps not some of the best, but to learn from all those experiences. I think we've seen up to 12 or 16 different libraries now to make sure that we're across the issues as best we can be. Location is really the first step in what is a long pathway that will be controversial. It will challenge us. The design standards, the costs, the activities we want to have in the building, and the ones that we can't afford to put in it will challenge us. But the community want us to get on with this job, and they're entrusting us to do the best that we can possibly do. This motion is incredibly important because it starts to zero in on the solution. And I just want to say this, we now need to start spending some serious money to work out which one of the sites and which design is the correct one. And we can't get there without engaging design specialists. I have a sneaky feeling that the CEO will be back to us very soon with the first phase of expenditure. It wouldn't surprise me if the CEO asked for $60,000 in order to commission design consultants to start working on these two options. Any other options are going to cost a multiplier of that. Any decision to explore other options will require us to rescind this motion, and I think it's a very important decision we would make, so I'm not going to shy away from it being a rescission motion, because it would mean that we're going to spend another $30,000 to assess another site. I think it's really important that we understand the next phase is going to cost serious money, and we have to be very careful about how we do that. Now, having said all that, I'd probably rather it was one site because that would save some money, but we're not ready for that yet. The next phase is very complex. Both of the sites that are in this motion require the existing activity to be relocated or rebuilt. Just that decision alone requires money to be spent thinking about where else could it go, and on this site, what should stay in the building and how does that get accommodated. How much of this building could be reused and how much of it gets demolished and start again. At the depot, if we take that site, where would the depot go and what that would cost? What's the foregone value of the land that we're building on that we then can't sell? All of those complexities need to be drawn together, and it's going to take time and effort, and that will involve, no doubt, some pretty serious discussion by all of us. And I fully appreciate that we may well come to a majority agreement. I hope we come to a consensus, but I suspect that there's going to be a lot of disagreement along the way. That is a natural part of making difficult decisions, and I don't shy away from it. On behalf of the Deputy, I really thank you for drawing Audley House to our attention. I think it is a beautiful house. I remember it when it was the Priory, the Blackfriars Priory, and I was across there having dinner with the guys there who lived there, and I can tell you they didn't do anywhere near as good a job looking after it as the current owners have done. The current owners have done a fantastic job of restoring that house to its former glory, and I really hope, I disagree perhaps with a couple of you, I really hope that we don't buy it. I hope that somebody who loves stately houses with beautiful gardens buys it and enjoys that house for many, many years to come. That is far and away the best use of that heritage asset, is to use it for its original purpose, which was as a stately manor house in a prime location. And it just is so beautiful at the moment. And I know if we made it a library or community centre, we would be doing serious damage inside that property in terms of opening it up and making it useful, and I would find that incredibly disappointing. However, the Deputy raised some really interesting and exciting ideas that we can consider for the new library site. I love the idea of having children play areas that go along with learning experiences. And I think our new design really has to pick up on that theme. I love the idea of having music, about having live performances there that are conducive to the work that others want to do inside the library space. I love the idea of it being a place of community celebration, a real high point in people's lives. And I think that's the aspiration that I think the Deputy puts so well that we should attach to our design for the built facility, 2,000 square metres, bookshelves, lights, desks, should have that other emotional tie to what we're trying to do in that space. And I really look forward to working out how we translate that into a design brief to make sure we get the best possible outcome. So I really thank the Deputy for bringing those ideas to us, if not having us draw our attention to using that site. So I commend the motion to you. It is a step forward, it's a big step forward, comes with risks. I think we are across those. Any further debate on this item? No, ask the mover, Councillor Evans, if you wish to sum up.
Just really briefly, and I didn't in the beginning, it was remiss of me also to thank the Deputy for your deputation, and indeed some very good points I think coming out of that. Certainly ones that I'm looking to explore, and we do have two options on the table here. Which option is the better option? From a personal perspective, I don't know, and that's what I'm really looking forward to this next process finding out. It's hugely important we get this right. It could be hugely expensive. There are so many options for us to consider, including the design and use outcomes that the Deputy has put to us this evening as well. So it is very exciting, it is very nervous, and we are running out of time. And so with that, I support the motion.
Thank you. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against? It is carried unanimously. Thank you. If you're here for the item regarding the library site, that's the end of discussion regarding that item tonight. You're welcome to stay for the balance of the meeting if you wish. But if you don't see a need to remain for the remaining items, we won't take any offence at all in you heading off home somewhere warm and invited. Thank you for your attendance tonight. Okay, we move on to the next item, item 9, which is motion on notice, 9.1, Councillor Mark Groot, regarding the potential Thorngate development.
Thank you. I'm required to read the motion out, correct?
As I understand it, CEO, we've checked this standing order and we can't find the reference to you having to read it out.
Fantastic.
Ooh.
that I shall not.
Here's as before us.
Controversial.
Well, look, the motion is as before you, and normally I read it out, but I shall not. Look, this motion came about as a result largely of a public meeting that was held in this chamber a week or two ago. And I'm not sure how many elected members are actually aware of some of the issues in Thorngate at the moment, but what's come about is that I was contacted by residents some weeks ago about a potential development, and that potential development has meant that a number of residents have been approached by real estate agents and a developer to sign an option to their property, and some of you might have seen that's been reported in the press this week. This includes a confidentiality agreement and an arrangement that they would not lodge any objections to a future development, and so that's been the tenor of the conversation to date. As I understand it, the development would look at consuming some 30 properties in an area of Thorngate, bounded by Manworth Road and Thorngate Street, up to Fitzroy Terrace, and would include, as reported this week, up to 16 stories of accommodation, parking, apartments, and a few other bits and pieces, and retail, as I understand it. And if you think of the height of that, if anyone knows the State Administration Centre in Victoria Square, that's 17 stories, so that's the kind of bulk that we're talking about. As you can, sorry?
Clever.
As I had to count them all too. Rightly so, residents were concerned, of course, when they heard this. People living not just in the area that weren't signing up to the agreement, but also people in Carter and Churches Street. Some people have signed those agreements and some haven't at this stage. What this motion does is puts on the public record our concern about this proposal, number one. This proposal exceeds our development plan to such a degree that not even DAC would be able to approve it. It would have to go to the state government as a major project. And so that, again, gives you a bit of a sense of the scale of it. In height alone, it would achieve probably 3 to 4 times our development plan. So this motion makes our position clear in the chamber and makes the council's position clear. But it also gives the opportunity for us, for the Mayor to write and the CEO to write to the Honourable John Rao, who's the Minister for Planning. And that's the other important part of this motion, that we write to the Minister and he understands I guess the views of the council, as I'm sure he's understanding the views of the residents as well. I've asked the CEO if she could schedule this as a topic for a workshop soon. The residents in the area at the residents' meeting had some ideas about how they would like the issue progressed in terms of support from council. One of their ideas was to create a task force and include a mix of elected members, administration and local residents, just to keep watching brief on this topic. That might or might not be the right answer, but I think we need a workshop to talk about that, particularly if there's a financial implication. And so I think the most appropriate thing to do in that regard is to take that to a workshop for some discussion, and the CEO's agreed that she will do that. This is just a proposal, I think, to make that point as well. There's been no plans lodged. There's been no formal application put in for this development. So at the moment it is a proposal. But what it is doing is making a lot of residents in that area very concerned about what could happen. And I'm certainly concerned about that as well. To me, the discussion about a development the size and the bulk that it is really has total disregard to our development plan. It's just so far beyond what we envisaged in any part of Prospect. I'm just astounded by it. As an elected member, I think that we need to make very clear about what our vision for that area is, and this goes some way, I think, in doing that. I don't believe this development has any place in that particular part of Prospect. I'm not sure it has any place anywhere in Prospect, but certainly not this particular place. And I'd certainly urge you to support this motion tonight, which is just to make our position clear and also to write to the Minister.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman, would you speak to it? Any further speakers to the motion? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I'd just like to, the second paragraph about council requesting the Mayor and the CEO to write and formally advise him. I'm just wondering if we should not have some other wording and say put the state on notice that a proposal which fails to meet the planning intent outlined in the development plan will not receive support of the City of Prospect, because we have had some development applications that have come before us and they're on merit because they don't meet a lot of our plan. So I'm just wondering whether that wording can somehow be strengthened or whatever. So I seek the advice through you with the CEO, planning stuff.
Can I thank you, Councillor Barnett, for trying to solve the vagaries of the on-merit planning system we currently have with a few simple words. I know exactly what you mean, and I don't know how to answer that question because I feel very frustrated about the ability for solutions to not match the current plan. However, I think planning intent outlined in the development plan is quite clear without being prescriptive, as in the mover could have suggested because it fails to limit itself to 4 stories. And we know that would be pointless because on merit you can have 5, for instance. Whereas the desired future character is very clear in the document and the overall intent of all the planning development controls considered together I think is very, very clear. So I'm going to defer to the mover's words, which I understood he has consulted with the team about already, and suggest no change. If you'd had one I could consider, I could comment on it, but I understand your frustration in your question. Yeah. I'm sorry, and CEO, have you got anything, any further suggestions?
Well, if I may, now I certainly respect the intent, the sentiment that you've expressed tonight, Councillor Barnett, and we'll certainly put strong phraseology into the letter to Minister Rao. We need to ensure, though, that from a council perspective, you are not making a decision in relation to a development that does not exist. That would be ultra vires in the eyes of the law. So you are not in a position to make a decision to clearly object to a development that does not exist. So the phraseology in the letter was very clear, reflecting the intent of the development plan and your desire to retain the character statements as presented in that development plan until such time that anything formal is lodged. And at that point, you could be much more pointed in relation to any commentary back to the state government.
Any further, Councillor? Any further debate? Councillor Harris.
That took one of them away because that was an area I was just going to go to. But I did want to point out, I'm holding my pad up here so I can read it. I did want to point out by supporting it, totally supporting it, that it does give me a personal sort of fear, and it's actually a quote that you said yourself while we were talking about it earlier on a couple of weeks ago, that it's almost an impossible dream, 16 floors here, this here, car park there, all those things. And I totally agree with that. But I do always have a fear with the new Free China agreement that there could always be someone that come and build anything and get over the top. So these sort of things put a real fear into me of anyone with normal common sense and the average dollar wouldn't do this in the long run. But I am frightened that there is people that may do this and override. So I support that motion wholly.
Thank you. Further debate? Just from the Chair, by way of quick update for those that I haven't caught up with or who couldn't make the session we had with the local residents the other night. It was very well attended. I have spoken to both the Minister and his department chiefs regarding this particular proposal. And they have not seen it at all, so they're unable to comment. However, the department staff advised me that the architect at least is known to them as having presented very large, grand-scale proposals before, and has proposed that they are backed by vast sums of money, and they have amounted to nothing. And furthermore, that upon inquiry, they have been unable to find any evidence that the architect has worked on an actual building that's come to fruition anywhere. So they're not saying that they've searched the end of the world, but they've found it very difficult to establish the bona fides of the designer, and certainly have not advanced to any of their designs through the system that the planning department can run. The Minister concurred, hasn't heard anything about this at all. It's not been briefed by his staff because they have not seen anything, and expressed complete disinterest in advancing a process through a major project process, which is the only pathway I see for a project of this scale. So I would be exceedingly surprised if this project got anywhere, and hopefully it'll become part of the annals of our history over time. However, I think the mover's suggestion and the CEO's concurrence that this come to a workshop is very important, because the owners of the land have expressed an interest in selling for a certain price, which does enable something to happen there. Now that's something, if we could capture that opportunity, that's something for at least part of the site, I think along Mainhorse Road, could actually be something really fantastic if it actually fits our development plan. And it is unusual to amalgamate sites. It's actually very hard to do. So I would expect that whatever initiative we get going focuses on making sure that we defeat this absolutely and for all time, and that no proposal anywhere near this scale is ever put to us again for this area. But equally, we are able to keep a relationship going to the extent that we can talk to the proponent about what else they might do that fits perfectly with our vision for that area. And I look forward to the workshop to explore how we would do that whilst making the anxiety levels of the residents be dealt with appropriately, because they're incredibly sensitive about this right now, and rightly so. It is an extraordinary proposal. So we need to have confirmation that not only we don't want it to go anywhere, confirmation the Minister won't let it go anywhere, and confirmation from the proponent that they will withdraw their ideas and consider other complying ideas. I think that should be our objective at the time. I thought, by way of update, that might be useful too. Are there any further councillors who wish to debate this item? No, back to the mover, Councillor Wood, who wishes to come up.
Look, just to I guess reiterate the point, this is to put a position forward from Council on this matter and also to write to the Minister. I think it's quite straightforward. Thank you, Mayor, for your comments. I think they're quite helpful as well. If there is something that can be done on the site that is within the vision of our plan, that's great, and that would be a fantastic outcome, a much better outcome than what's being proposed at the moment. So I would urge you all to support the motion.
That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay, questions with notice we have nil. Questions without notice do we have any? In case, on the protocol over the page, I can't remember the last time this happened, but as the Chair, I don't need to withdraw any of these items or reserve any of these items for debate, so I'll take them from the top under the protocol. Does anybody wish to reserve item 15.1, the 2017 Terrific Prospect Event Objectives? No. 15.2, Library Plus, we have already dealt with. Off-street car parking development fund, item 15.3. Anybody wish to reserve that? No. Item 17.1, the Resilient East Climate Change Action Plan. Comprehensive. Anybody wish to withdraw that? Councillor Bowman. 19.1, review of confidential items on page 104. Anybody wish to withdraw that? Item 19.2, community feedback regarding the draft annual business plan 2016-17, reflecting what we discussed in the workshop. Anybody wish to withdraw that? Councillor Harris. Item 19.3, fees and charges register 2016-17. Anybody wish to withdraw that one? No. So then, please, someone move on. Block item 15.1, 15.3, 19.1 and 19.3. Moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Harris. There is no debate. All those in favour? Against? They are all carried. Thank you. Okay, so let's turn our attention to item 17.1, Resilient East Climate Change Adaptation Plan on page, recommendations on page 5051. Councillor Bowman, just a brief reason why you reserved it.
It was a great report, and I just wanted to bring it to people's attention, and also hopefully that I would expect that the concepts in the report are included in our library build.
Thank you. So you're in support, happy to move it?
Happy to move it.
Okay, thank you. Do you wish to speak any further to us? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Group, do you wish to speak any to it at all?
Just what Councillor Bowman said.
Thank you. Any further debate? Concludes debate. Councillor Bowman, do you wish to sum up your excellent speech? All those in favour? Against? It's carried. And unanimously. And The next item that was withdrawn was the budget item by Councillor Harris, 19.2 on page 145. Councillor Harris, just a brief reason why you withdrew it.
Yes, I just want to make some comments about a particular area in it.
Okay. Do you wish to move it or not?
Yes, because it's consultation, I'll move it.
Okay, thank you. And speaking to it?
And can I ask you quickly a question first? That means I can actually say what I was going to say, isn't it, at the same
You
time?
can do everything but amend it.
They will never give me that opportunity. Thank you. Okay, look, I'd like to move the motion, and by doing so, thank again, I think we nearly do this every year when we come along these sort of things, the various staff, the directors and the people that do the groundwork around of trying to get people to consult, trying to get people to come to meetings, trying to get people to look through them, and it's almost an impossible task. About the best response you ever get from people, I think, that's not the best response, but the most common one is within minutes of you endorsing something where they scream they're not happy with it and you shouldn't have done this and all those things, and they've never opened their mouth in the first place. So in that main area, I'd like to thank all those people for doing the work. I think it's good because I've asked last night, and I believe next week or something the budget comes up which follows through from this. My only concern that I raised without anything to it is, and I've actually written down here, this is on the iPad, so I don't know if it works the same everywhere else, page 158 and 156, part 19.2, in particular 5.12. I won't even be able to find it again in my time, but I did yesterday.
China strategy.
Yeah, the China strategy.
Yeah, that's the survey results.
Yeah, from the focus group one, and that's why 158 is attachment 8 is where the questions and answers come. I don't hide the fact that I'm against the China Free Trade Agreement. Now we've got some various things that are showing in my former industry, because I'm retired now, of where this has done damage to our workers. But I just want to point out today that a lot of those sort of answers we got, which weren't many, were not in favour of. So I'm just raising it, that it's a concern that I have, and next week I will be endorsing the budget, but again I'll be raising this point that I'm not happy with it, and I'm very sorry to the Deputy Mayor very early on, because it was a fantastic spill that he did. And
Can we get it out again?
no, I've actually got a similar one at home. In fact, it looks almost exactly the same. But I'd just like to point that out, but I'm more than happy with the whole rest of the setup of the work that people have done and endorse it.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Lee, you should speak to it.
Except to say that it is an excellent report, and again, to repeat, thank you to all the directors and the staff who put so much time and effort into it, making it understandable and sometimes an entertaining read.
Any further debate? No? Councillor Harris, you need to sum up.
Just by saying thank you.
That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against, it is carried. Okay, thank you. That concludes the reports tonight. I draw your attention to the council diary. A whole pile of events there for you to hopefully turn up and represent your city at and meet your constituents. Gallery exhibitions, footy games, including this Saturday. Club 502 continues along. I know I'll see many of you at the Boom Stars interactive dance moves and sing-alongs. Oh, with your child, sorry, if you've got children 3 and under. Climate change murders could be interesting. I'm sure it will be because David Kilner's running it, so it'll be very interesting. And the matinee program events coming up. General business, do we have any? And I'm advised we have one from Councillor Group, which is now on the screen.
We do, because I don't have to read it out, I won't. But what the intent behind this is I've had a number of people talk to me about the speed of traffic in the Memorial Gardens play space, particularly along Menzies Crescent. Having a chat to the Director for Infrastructure, Assets and Environment, I was keen for a report to go back to Council just on what the options might be, consistent with our master planning that happened probably some 6 or 7 years ago, which actually looked at addressing speeds, particularly around what is now our major regional play space. So all this is doing is calling for a report by the end of August. It's not coming in money at this point. I might lobby you for that later on, but this one's just looking at some options for reducing speed, particularly around that fragmented area. We do have the speed hump on Menzies Crescent near the football oval, so our footballers don't get hurt or eaten by dogs, but we don't have much around the actual playground side, so we're really keen to look at some options that might help us on there.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Harris, wish to speak to it?
No, he made it so wise. Kids can go under
Any
the
further debate? There is some history on the site, so I look forward to the next creative report. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any further general business? No? Is there any general business of an urgent nature? No? Confidential item 0 nil. Meeting is closed. Thanks everybody for your attendance.